Alright, so in the last session we talked about how to handle emotions. And we gave some specific techniques for how to do just that. Now we're going to flip to the other side of the coin and we're going to start off with a quick question. And that question is, what is trading discipline? Discipline is a word that's probably the most associated word with trading when we're talking about trading psychology. And all the great traders tell you that you have to be disciplined. But what is trading discipline? Take a moment to think about that, maybe even pause the video and come up with your own answer for what you think being disciplined in trading is all about. Okay, so I hope you have your own personal answer for this. Most people, when they're asked what trading discipline is, they'll answer with usually one of two ways. One is that trading discipline is the ability to cut your losses short, to have stop losses and never take a big loser and always keep your stop losses. And yes, that is true. And then the other answer is often that trading discipline is having good risk management, not risking too much of your account on any given trade, i.e. correct position sizing. And yes, that's also true. But trading discipline is actually far more than that. Those two things, like I explained extensively in that Your Trading Framework section, those two things should be a given. When I see a trader and they tell me that they cut their losses short and they use correct position sizing, while that's all well and good, and I'm happy for them that they're able to do that, I don't applaud them and I don't go, wow, you're so disciplined. Because to me, if you can't get yourself to do that, that means you don't respect the market enough and you don't want this bad enough. Because if you did, those are the most basic things that you should be doing. It should just be a given in your mind that you need to cut your losses short and you need to use correct position sizing, because we have thousands of examples from traders before us in history who haven't done this and who have blown their accounts. So we really don't need to blow our own accounts to then see, okay, I've been through it now I need to be disciplined. Well, history is full of examples of others, so there's no need. We can learn from their mistakes. All right? So to me, this is only a very small part of discipline. And if I were to define what discipline really means and what it really means to be a very disciplined trader, I would use this definition. I would say that trading discipline is the ability to control your state of mind to allow for optimal trading performance. Okay, trading discipline, as we see from this definition, is not limited to certain behaviors like cutting losses or using correct position sizing. Those are just part of it. Trading discipline is all about the ability to control your state of mind. And this ability to control your state of mind is what allows you to do all those other correct behaviors. Okay, for instance, your ability to control this fear of taking losses is what allows you to cut your losses short. Your ability to control the mental state of greed or of trying to enter the markets in a state of hope is what allows you to use conservative position sizing and play the game correctly. Your ability to control your state of mind and practice patience is what allows you to grow your account slowly without taking too large of risks. So it all has to do with an internal thing. It's not external behaviors. And if you're wondering what are the other specific things that trading discipline can extend to, let me give you some examples so you see how broad it is and why you need to be able to practice mental state control consistently to be considered discipline and not just, cut your losses short or use correct position sizing. So let's take a look at some things. So here are some effects of having weak discipline apart from having those big losses if you don't use stop losses or having too big of position sizing. We're saying those are a given. So what are some other effects of having weak discipline? Well, the first one is over trading, and by this we mean whether it's for a lack of patience or anger or frustration, revenge, whatever it is, but taking too many trades without an edge, getting chopped up, trading in places you shouldn't be trading, taking trades that you know are not part of your plan, are not part of your strategy, because your state of mind is not where it should be at. All right, so that's one obvious thing. The next one is under optimizing exits. This is a huge one that a lot of people don't focus nearly as much attention as they should on it, and we are going to have a whole session purely based on the psychology of profit exits. But this is something else. If you have weak discipline, i.e., have weak mental state control, you will often under optimize your exits. You'll allow yourself to get into that state of fear, and you'll think thoughts that will be getting you to take very small profits in fear of letting a winner turn into a loser, and so on. You won't be able to hold your trades as long as you know you should, because instead of thinking of process, you've let your mind be undisciplined, and you start thinking about the profits and losses, about the P&L. All right, so this is another effect that most people forget to associate with discipline. You got to be disciplined when managing your exits to do it right. Yet another effect is when you start skipping trades after a string of losers. Okay, so let's say you've had 3 or 4 or 5 losers in a row, which is normal under the vast majority of strategies, unless they have extremely high accuracy rate. You're gonna have at times 3, 4, 5 losers in a row. And if you don't have true discipline, again, meaning true mental state control, you'll start skipping trades after a string of losers, right? You'll have low confidence, you'll start doubting yourself, and you'll skip a perfectly good trade with a good edge, and one that could have had a very large winner because it was a high reward to risk play that could have made up all your losers in one trade. And by doing this, you start ruining your long-term edge that you should be trading for. Okay? And if you had practiced mental state control and taken this broad definition of discipline, you would be putting yourself in the right frame of mind after these losers and just trading like you would at any other time. That would be true discipline. Okay? Yet another effect is failing to aggressively capitalize on good conditions. Right? When we talked about this when we discussed the tactics and execution, all that, regarding trend days in specific, where we said some of these days are such obvious high conviction days that we really got to milk it and just keep aggressively pouncing on one trade after the other. Well, again, if you don't put yourself in that frame of mind and sustain it throughout the day, it's very easy to not be aggressive enough. It's very easy to, let's say you had a trade on from the morning and it was going well in your direction, it's very easy to be just satisfied with that trade and not take on those extra trades for fear of losing your current profits or whatever it is. And that doesn't seem like a bad thing. Most people think of discipline as just in the area of losses. But again, just like under optimizing exits is one area where discipline applies, aggressively milking good conditions and capitalizing on them is also another area, right? And if you had 2 traders, the more disciplined trader, the one that has better state control, even if they were trading the exact same strategy and they had the same skill, will on average produce more profits out of a given high conviction day than the other trader, because the other trader will let their mind either make them complacent during that day or turn to fear or whatever. Okay? And then a related effect is stopping trading once you're up a certain amount. This is something that a lot of traders do, and again, it's not seen as a weakness in discipline. Some even look at it as a good thing, but it certainly isn't. If you captured a great trade or two early in the morning and you're up, let's say, more than you've ever been up in terms of dollar amount, the first natural inclination for the vast majority of people is that they don't want to lose this money and they want to stop. They don't want to take another trade that day. They just want to book a great day and feel good about themselves. And that's natural. But that also would mean weak discipline, because if you're truly disciplined, you would not be looking at your P&L to determine how you should trade. All right, unless of course you had some risk management rules or said if I was down this much in a day I have to stop, that's another thing. But when you're up a certain amount and now a great trade is setting up, there's no reason you should be stopping that day. How are you ever gonna keep increasing your best if every time you reach a new best you just stop and you're afraid to go further? So this is something that a lot of traders do, and it really limits their earning power. And when you look at your bottom line, again, it's not just losses. You also have to look at missed opportunities and how much it could have made. And if I have two equal traders in terms of skill and strategy, and one of them makes twice as much than the other, then I'm going to say that that person is more disciplined, even if they both cut losses and use the same position sizing, because the other person's discipline is what allows him to avoid all of these weaknesses. All right, so as you see, discipline is much more broad than most traders attribute it to be. Okay? Now, having said all this, which I think was an important point to make, just so you see the importance of continuous mental state control and you take it seriously and you really focus on it because it's very important, we now have a question. And that question is, how do we achieve mental state control? Right? If we're saying it's that important and this is what discipline is all about, the question is, how do you achieve it? And the answer is that it's not limited to one specific way. There are actually several proven, powerful techniques for taking control of your mental state. And of course, we know, just from pure experience of our own lives, that your thinking highly influences your feeling. In the previous session, we talked about how to deal with feelings as they arise, but there's also a way to control your state of mind up to a certain degree that places you in a different emotional state altogether without having to deal with just whatever comes up, right? Just by changing your thoughts, a lot of times you can powerfully change your emotions too. So this is kind of, again, the other side of the coin. So having said that, let's talk about the first technique of mental state control. And that technique is what's called cognitive reframing. And to understand what cognitive reframing means, we have to quickly step back a bit and talk about the nature of reality. See, most people think that they exist in an external objective reality that's the same for everyone else, right? And stuff happens to them and they react to those things, and that's the nature of it. They think there is an objective factual reality out there. And while this is what the vast majority of the human race thinks, science is showing, and specifically quantum physicists have recently been showing over the last couple of decades, that this is far from true. And this also is actually lining up with what the old spiritualities of the past have always said, and now science is proving it. Not the science they're teaching in school, the science that most people are not exposed to and most people would not really be ready to accept. But if you're a trader, that means you've accepted the fact that you need to work on yourself and evolve as a human being to really be able to make it long term in the market. And that's the beauty of trading. That's something that I personally love about it. But given that, you have to be open to new ways of looking at the world and your place in it. And one thing you need to question is this idea of an objective reality out there, right? What physicists are showing now is that we literally create our own reality. And not just from this kind of new age kind of thinking thing, but literally. Like each thought creates new matter and actually shapes what happens to us and how our lives take place. We think that stuff's just happening and we react to it, while in reality it's the other way around. But we're not going to get deep into the metaphysical aspect of it. But this all boils down to one major conclusion, and that's that what you view as reality is simply a product of your interpretation, and that interpretation is based on your beliefs and experiences. To give you an example, let's say you meet someone new and you experience that person to be cold and unkind and not very friendly at all. Okay? And when you leave, for you in your mind, that was your reality, and you're convinced that that person is like that, right? And if someone came and told you, no, those are just your interpretations, you'd be like, no, of course not. Those are facts. This person is like that, and that's reality. But there are some things that are beneath the surface that you may not have noticed. For instance, you may have known someone in the past that was actually unkind and cold and unfriendly, and they looked similar to this person, and maybe they had some similar body language or something like that. And so your beliefs would instantly influence you, and they would act as a lens through which you interpret how this person is like, even though that might not be true. Right? Another person that may be with you, let's say that you were two and there's another person with you, and they leave and they go, oh, I like that person. You're like, wow, how could you like them? They were rude and unkind. They were like, I didn't notice that. And that's because maybe this person did not have your previous experiences and had not built up your beliefs, and their viewpoint was completely different. Right? So that's one way of looking at it. And that shows that even though you were both there in the exact same situation, your reality was completely different than your friend's reality. And that's because there's nothing objective out there. It's all how we think, and it's all how we view the world that creates it for us. And this could be taken further where, based on how you were thinking, now you reacted in a certain way and it caused all these different events. Whereas if you had viewed it differently from the beginning, you would have acted in a different way, and a whole set of other events would have taken place. All right? Maybe you became rude back, and then there was confrontation, whereas if you hadn't viewed it like that, you would have been friendly, and you guys could have become friends that night. Who knows? But the point is, from that point forward, things would change, and you would be on a different path. One is maybe you'd never talk to this person again. Another is maybe you could have become friends with this person, and then who knows of all the different sequences of events that could have taken place, which shows that your mind was literally creating a reality and causing all the different paths in your life based on things you're not even noticing. All right, so I know I've taken this kind of far and gone deep into it, and you're maybe thinking, well, what does this have to do with trading? But there's a point behind this. And the point behind this is this simple conclusion that if you can change your mind and your thoughts, you can change your reality. And this is something that's often stated, and it seemed to be like one of those things that gurus just say, but it's not. It's actually true, and it's proven by science. And in trading, this can be your greatest ally, to realize that you have this power, that you're not a victim of whatever happens to you in the market, that as you change your mind and your perspective and your point of view, you literally change your reality. First, your mental state changes, and this is what it's all about, mental state control. And then, based on your mental state, you will do different things, like we had discussed all those issues before, right? If you have a strong mental state in any given moment that is free of fear and is confident, then you're going to act in a completely different way. You might take that good trade and hold it to the correct target and now end up a winner, whereas exact same person, i.e. you, with the same strategies, same everything, if you have a different point of view, you don't take that trade, you miss it, then you do revenge trading, you end up down. Completely different results just because of how you think. All right? And so the question is, okay, how does this all actually apply to trading? Well, if you approach trading from this place of personal power, things quickly change for you. And what this technique is all about, it's called cognitive reframing, right? We mentioned that. And the reason why it's called cognitive reframing is because what you currently see as reality is your frame of reference, right? And when you change your point of view, that's reframing. You're changing the frame of reference. And all you need to do to change a frame of reference is to ascribe different meaning to whatever has happened. So let's take a couple of specific trading examples and see how cognitive reframing would take place there. First, let's assume that the scenario right now is that you take a loss that you probably shouldn't have taken, maybe the trade you shouldn't have taken it, and your initial reaction, or the natural thing that most people would think at that point, would be, I'm a bad trader, that was so stupid of me, right? So this would be the normal thing most people would think. And thinking in this way would create a certain state of mind where they were feeling bad about themselves, they were feeling stupid, and this would carry on to the rest of your trading, right? It would cause you to make bad decisions going forward. Now, when we're talking about a cognitive level, one way you could reframe this would be to think, well, losses are part of the game and I can't learn if I don't make mistakes. Now, this seems very simple, but the consequences of making this change of mind are huge, because your state of mind and the way you feel and your mood is going to be very different between these two things. Now notice that the quote-unquote objective reality hasn't changed. The loss is still there, everything's still the same. But we said your thoughts create your reality. You create your own reality through your thinking and your mind. You're responsible for it, and nothing else and no one else is responsible for it. Well, if you take the other point of view, that losses are a normal part of the game and you almost need to make mistakes to learn, you're not going to feel so bad. It might still sting, but your state of mind could be different, and you could keep a positive state of mind. And the positive state of mind is going to allow you to stay disciplined and stay doing the correct things from that point forward. Now, of course, this seems so basic and simple, and it is. That's the whole point, is that it shouldn't be this really complex thing that you need to do, because while you're trading, these things are happening so fast that if I was going to give you some really complex solution, you would not be able to do it. Now, most people know in life that yes, you can just change your mind, and that's when you talk to a friend, they make you look at things in a different perspective. But you notice that often that does work. When you talk to someone, when you're going through something bad and they change your perspective, you notice you change and the way you think change, and maybe you become motivated again and you're not depressed or whatever it is. Well, what you got to do is condition yourself to learn to do this anytime thoughts like this pop up. Alright, so let's take another example. Another common, normal, and natural quick reaction that people have when they, let's say, take a loss or a couple losses is, the market is out to get me. That's what they think. They feel like a victim. They take on that victim identity and they think the market is out to get them, and anytime I enter a trade it just goes against me, and it's like there's some kind of conspiracy against me. Well, if that thought pops up, the way to reframe it is to quickly think something like this. This is a game of odds, and losses are actually a natural part of my edge. The market is not out to get me. I'm not a victim. This is part of it. And even the losses aren't so-called bad things because they're part of my long-term edge. Like, my edge, when I calculate it, already includes all those losses. So this is already part of it. It's not some unfortunate incident that's now happening to me. Alright? Again, simple change in perspective, just changing your mind, but what it'll do for your mental state is huge. In the first one, you're going to feel like a victim and you're going to act from that powerless state, and you're going to trade in a weak manner and trying not to lose. In the second, you quickly regain your composure, you think correctly, and you keep on taking good trades. Simple change in perspective, huge difference in trading. Okay? Let's take another example. Let's say you have taken a string of losers in a row, 4 or 5 losses in a row. The first natural thought that may come to your mind is, I've lost my trading ability, I can't make money anymore. This is a very negative state of mind to have, a very debilitating one that is going to really affect the way you trade. But knowing that the simple thing called cognitive reframing really helps, you could instantly recognize that you're thinking like this and change it to something like this. Any good strategy will have strings of losers, and this is to be expected even when I'm doing the right things. Okay? And so again, having this kind of perspective on things will keep you calm, will keep you collected, and it'll even keep you positive. You'll can even feel pride in that you're following your strategy despite the several losers in a row. All right? And again, huge difference it's going to cause in terms of the actions going forward. And a final example, let's say you miss a great trade that you should have had. All right? Natural reaction would be, I'm such an idiot. A good trader would not have missed that trade. And you get down on yourself and you beat yourself up and you get in that negative state of mind. And now you're going to miss another trade, or you're going to start revenge trading, or you're not going to be as aggressive as you should be, or you'll be over aggressive. A million different things that could go wrong from this if you keep yourself in this state of mind. But what is discipline? Discipline would be to recognize, hey, I'm not in the ideal state of mind, and to quickly do something about it, and to do that by reframing. So you could reframe it as follows. Even good traders make mistakes, and what defines a trader is how well they bounce from their mistakes. Now look at this, what you've taken something that was a negative thing, and you've flipped it around, and it's become a challenge, right? It's become something, instead of thinking, oh, I'm such an idiot, how could I have missed this? Now you've taken that and you've changed it into a challenge of what defines a trader is how well they bounce. So now your challenge is to bounce well. And something that would make every trader feel bad, you could end up at the end of it feeling good, ironically, because you bounced well from the mistake and you stayed disciplined. Now that is like night and day. That's a huge difference, and it's going to be a huge difference in your results for the rest of that day and even for many days forward. All right? One, you took it to be this bad thing and you feel bad about yourself. The second, you actually took it to even increase your confidence because now you view yourself as this good trader that can bounce well from mistakes, and everyone makes mistakes. So you see, despite it being simple, it's huge. And while everyone knows this, I mean, this is not rocket science. This is not some secret thing that hard to understand. But the fact is, the reason why the first technique is cognitive reframing is because I want to drill in the importance of continually reminding yourself to change these thoughts when they arise. All right? And of course, you can use and you should use what you've learned in the last session about handling emotions, because when you're thinking I'm such an idiot and a good trader would not have missed that trade, your emotions are boiling up, you're angry and all that. And if now you think, well, I need to change this thought, it might not come so easily. One good way to do it is to first accept those feelings, like we said, welcome those feelings despite them being uncomfortable, right? Even welcome to the resistance to feeling that way. And maybe you want to try a specific technique like watching yourself feeling those feelings or writing it out or whatever it may be. And once a lot of that energy of the feeling kind of dissipates, then you can replace it with that good thought to control your state of mind. All right? So these things can work hand in hand. But the point of this whole thing is that if you're cutting your losses consistently and you're practicing good position sizing, while yes, that is a part of discipline, that doesn't mean that you're a very disciplined trader. What would make you a very disciplined trader and what you should strive for is this kind of thing, is that at any time your state of mind is in any form of negativity, you recognize it, you don't judge yourself for it, maybe you welcome the feelings first, you allow them to be there, but then you quickly reframe it, look at the situation from a different point of view, find any positive thing, okay, anything that could be positive, and think about that. That's what reframing is all about. It's finding the positive in any situation and focusing on that and reframing the whole situation from the lens of that positive thing, like you see on this screen and like you've seen in the last several examples. And the examples are endless. It's gonna be different every time, but if you can condition your mind to look for these things, and which needs what? It needs self-awareness. Like we said, self-awareness is the most important thing in trading psychology throughout all this. Because, see, most people don't take responsibility for their thoughts. So when they're trading, these things are happening, and then they're going, oh, I have terrible trading psychology and all that. But they're not taking responsibility for being self aware, for continually throughout the day monitoring their thoughts, and for making a proactive effort to change them. And this is what you need to do. You need to have a proactive effort to change them. Anytime you notice these things, you welcome the feeling first, you let it be there, you let go of that energy, and then you take the thought, you look for the correct perspective, you change it, and you stay in that optimal state of mind. And true discipline is the ability to stay in that optimal state of mind as much as possible throughout the day. Any little mistake that you avoid, any extra good thing that you can do is all going to go straight to your bottom line. All right? And that's the difference between being a consistently profitable trader and being a losing trader, even with a good strategy. And that can be the difference between a good trader and a great legendary trader. It all comes to this: how often can you stay in that optimal state of mind? All right? And so with that, this session ends, but we're going to continue in part 2 with some more techniques other than cognitive reframing. What are some other things that you can do to take control of your state of mind other than just changing your perspective and changing your thoughts? So we'll take a look at that in the next session.